Another utility program that we use in order to perform a copy function is the IEBCOPY utility. And IEBCOPY is different because of the fact that we are copying partition dataset members into other partition datasets. Now, for the most part, if we can edit the member, then certainly we could use something like IEBGener, and we can perform a variety of copies. But ultimately, we may also have to copy load libraries or these executable programs. And so IEBCOPY is a much better utility to perform those kinds of functions with. In particular, we're copying partition datasets. We can create an unloaded version of a partition dataset. This allows us to create an output sequential file that we can then use portably to move to another system, where we can then use IEBCOPY to copy it into a partition dataset. An unloaded version cannot be processed normally as a sequential file, but it does create a version then that can be ported to another system and used to download there. We can merge partition datasets using IEBCOPY, and we can selectively copy individual members within a PDS, as well as use that then to restore individual members from a copy that we've created. We can also compress partition datasets, which is effectively a copy back into itself, and that way we can reclaim any dead space that may have been generated as a result of updating members within that particular dataset. And finally, we can also copy and reblock load modules. Now, what's significant about this is that a load module, because of the fact that it's an executable, has very unique characteristics when it's created. And as a result, it cannot simply be reblocked through any other mechanism. So IEBCOPY is the utility program that knows how to do this to produce an executable version. And so as a result, in the event that you do need to reblock and copy load modules, this would be the utility that you would use for that purpose. And we can also, of course, restore an unloaded PDS. The JCL requirements, very similar, and you're going to see this pattern with IBM utilities. The sysprint defines our message dataset. sysut1 defines our input dataset, or we can specify any name, and we have a control statement that allows us to identify what that name would be. Similarly, sysut2 will define our output dataset, or again, we can specify any name that we choose if we specify it on the control statement. sysut3 and sysut4 are two optional DD statements that may be used in the event that there isn't enough processor memory to hold the directory information for the datasets that you are copying. This would be a very, very rare circumstance these days, if ever. So sysut3 and 4 are not normally coded and are not needed for normal runs of IEBCOPY. And then finally we have our sysin DD*, which is going to represent the input for our control statements. The basic JCL then is going to look something like this, where we have an IEBCOPY, and in this case we've opted not to use other names for our DD statements. So sysut1 identifies our input, sysut2 identifies our output, and then the sysin DD* identifies where the control statements are going to follow. In particular, in this example here now, you can see where we have used a different DD name, and we've specified this on our copy control statement, so that we've identified our output DD is called outlib, and our input DD is called inlib, and so we've specified those values in our JCL. The control statements for IEBCOPY are going to be the alter mod, which we can use to modify a load module. We can perform the copy, which is going to unload or create a load, or to just perform a straight copy. We can do a copy group, which is going to do the same thing. This allows us then to manage a group of modules. We can copy individual load modules for reblocking. We can specify our input DD and our output DD statements. We can also exclude or select members for copy or unload processing. And basically, this is going to be what it looks like then when we have something like this coded up. In this particular case, we do have the sysut 3 and 4 specified, but as I said, in all likelihood, they are not going to be necessary. The InDD and the OutDD are identified on the copy statements. And then, of course, we have a select. In this case, it's abbreviated as a select member, and it indicates we are copying a program. And the second entry indicates that we are renaming it and the value we are renaming it to. So as a result, what we have then is that we will do a copy of a module called IEFBR14, and we will rename it to IFAUARTN. And we will do the same thing with all of the other entries that we have defined down below that. So again, let's go ahead and take a look now at a demonstration of IEBCOPY performing the example that we just shown. In this case, as we said, we're going to be copying a partition data set, and we're going to be copying a module and then renaming it. In this particular example, we are going to be copying the contents of this test.link source library, which has this one module in it. And what we're going to do is that we are going to copy it into test.linklib, which currently has no modules in it at all. So when we go to the IEBCOPY, what we're going to be interested in is we're going to be interested in copying that individual module and then renaming it for every copy event. So in this particular case here, just as we saw in our example, you can see we have our copy statement. We do a select on the member IEFBR14 and then rename it to the name that we have associated with the second entry. So when I submit this, what's going to happen now is that each copy now is going to go ahead and take that IEFBR14, create a new entry in that data set, and rename it. So now when I go to look at my data set, what I'm going to find is that all of those entries that have been created now from link source, the one module, now we have all of these renamed entries out here, indicating that we have copied all of those and given them a new name. As we said, IEBCOPY is used in order to perform all of these kind of partition data set copies. So that's one of the primary roles then that this utility fulfills.